So I would like to focus now on the present and then the future. I've got a few things in terms of this. This is quite interesting. Just specific the Africa report. This is published March 2017. It was specifically talking about AI hits African companies. It was kind of a little report about what's happening here. So obviously it's starting to be utilized in African companies, and it was just talking about that. And as part of that, there's an article talking about the rise of AI in Africa. Then they've given some specific examples. Now, in the first part of the talk, I've talked about T-Sense and Cortex Logic and some of the things I'm involved in myself. Mentioned Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa and all of that. But there's a bunch of other things happening. So here's an example where in Ethiopia, the Commodity Exchange, ECX, they've actually teamed up with IBM. There's going to be an IBM speaker here as well today. But they teamed up and they built a coffee traceability solution based on IBM Watson and so forth. And IoT, it's kind of an IoT type of solution. And basically what it does is track coffee through all the stages of the supply chain. So that was an interesting application. And obviously if you do it for coffee, you can do it for a lot of other things as well. Then we talked about drones. There's an example here of AeroView platform, and they're actually a Cape Town-based company. And they also use AI and satellites and drones to assist farmers and help them optimize the yield through analyzing process maps and identifying problem areas in crops. So that's another interesting application as well. So another example here is they call Sophia, and that's actually more on the healthcare side. So we've got a bunch of examples on the healthcare side. So Sophia has been used in Morocco, Cameroon, and South Africa. And what they're trying to do, and I think there's some other initiatives like Sophia also happening here in Africa, that's specifically focused on AI for clinical genomics into their clinical workflows to improve patient care. So that's awesome. So it's trying to bring in genomics as well. And another drone example is in Rwanda, where they've adopted the world's first national drone delivery network for medical aid. And they actually deliver blood samples. And in this particular instance, they're talking about blood transfusions to make 50 to 150 deliveries a day of blood to 21 transfusing facilities. So that's good to see. And it's actually a Californian-based company, Zipline, that is actually involved with this. But it's nice to see. I know Rwanda is quite forward-looking with Paul Kagame and a lot of the things happening there. But it's interesting to see these kind of applications, which is like world first type of things happening on that scale. And then there's also scanning platforms. Basically, they've got an optical accessory that they fit onto an Android smartphone, and they can use that by healthcare professionals can use that. In this particular instance, they actually examine women for early signs of cervical cancer and stuff like that. So it's good to see these kind of smart technology being utilized in healthcare examples. So this is some examples in Africa. Then there's an example of Neuralab. They're actually doing a very good thing because they are basically using drones again, and they're using deep learning, image recognition, all those type of things to fight poaching in Africa. And it's amazing, in this particular article, they talk about elephants and rhinos. And the amazing stat here is that there's 100,000 elephants that are killed in Africa from 2010 to 2012, with a further 40,000 being killed in 2013. And they were talking about every 14 minutes in Africa, an elephant being killed, which is crazy. And we know with rhinos here in South Africa, they talk about every 9 to 11 hours, you've got rhinos being killed. So, and they talk about a 90,000% increase since 2007. So it's good to see smart technology being utilized to actually fight these type of things. Then another example here is AI helping answer thousands of health queries in Zambia by SMS. And it's actually supported by UNICEF. So here specifically, actually the interesting machine learning thing here where there's a bunch of queries coming in, SMS queries, and to handle this at scale, you need some machine learning to help categorize what this is about, what's the intent, what do people actually want to know about this. And the interesting thing here is to any symptoms, I want to know HIV testing, treatment, pregnancy, transmission, prevention, and all sorts of things. Male circumcision as well, it's one of the categories there. But anyway, so it's nice to see those type of applications. Now another example, I mentioned this earlier, is also my involvement with Jumo, also being a shareholder there, as the next generation mobile money marketplace in emerging markets, specifically in Africa. And there's a little map where you can see in Africa all those white filled-in countries is where Jumo is active. So East Africa and also the west coast there of Africa. And it's basically a next generation mobile money marketplace, providing financial services via feature phones, not even smartphones, feature phones, USD menus, and on demand. So it's basically for entrepreneurs or people that's in need of money. I need to get my kid to school, I've got an emergency, or I need to get some stock for my specific shop or whatever, and they can very quickly get access to capital to make things happen. So it's actually stimulating the economy. And here you can see some of the partners there, Leshego, Old Mutual, obviously Jumo itself, and some of the mobile network operators that we work with, MTN, Airtel, Tigo, Vodafone. And the things that we did from a data science AI perspective, what we're still doing is, obviously, you're building credit risk models, predictive models, affordability models, doing segmentation, anomaly detection, based on your basically your call direct records, your wallet behavior, those type of things. And if you, in the loans, the microloans is also being paid back maybe in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you can see interesting patterns. And as people pay back, then obviously you get a higher loan, you can draw more money, maybe a longer payback period, all that type of stuff, and it's all done in real time. Fraud is also happening, so to need to have real-time fraud detection systems in place. So it's quite a challenging environment. Also work with big data at scale. So that is a Jumo example. And the interesting thing is, these are some of the stats. Obviously, if you put money into the system, it's going to obviously mean that you have more activity, and obviously the mobile network operators want more activity on their wallets, so they want to see that. So the transaction growth is obviously going sky high, and it was revenue growth. But there's obviously for MNOs was quite cool. What I like about this is the fact, well, there's obviously money now on my wallet, so I can also buy airtime. I can buy other things as well. So it's actually stimulating. So it's not only stimulating the economy and the people helping them, but it's also obviously helping the MNOs. And it's all about loyalty. It's this activity on the wallets. This is what they're trying to do. Another example is, even for the unbanked, this is examples in Africa, well, specifically Cortex Logic working with Bite Money. Bite Money is digitizing cash receipts. In this case, they're looking at, for instance, funeral policies. You get these funeral parlors. And what we did for them, being an AI agent for them, is to predict lapse propensity, predicting non-active members, and got some really good results and so forth, but also good insights. So you can get to things like, what is the average probability to lapse by plan brand? Or you can look at the average probability to lapse by age, gender, plan active, plan cover, those type of things. And this is different from where you've got regular payments, debit orders, whatever. This is like cash. Most of it is cash. They've got SASO cards and other things as well, but most of these people pay cash, and they don't necessarily pay every month the same amount even. So very interesting dynamics, but again, if you've got AI, data science, and you apply it, you can get some very interesting stuff where you can actually start managing this. And then there's lots of examples where there's savings in terms of the churning industry and medical scheme fraud detection and so forth. Now I'm going to the Deep Learning Indaba. We've got, particularly was one of the organizers of the Deep Learning Indaba, and we'll be talking about what's happening in Africa at present, so I just wanted to share a little bit of that as well. And this was on the website. They had this visualization around Africa being a missing continent from an AI research perspective. So if you click on this visualization, what you basically see is all the contributions for NIPS, which is one of the conferences, neural network or AI conferences in the world. And there's basically 0 papers from that. When I was still in academia, I've been presenting at international neural network conferences and stuff like that. There was actually more activity, but it's kind of amazing to see not a lot of collaboration and contribution from Africa. But anyway, so what do we do about this? So I think the Deep Learning Indaba was a wonderful event. So there's a few people here that was there. And it was held here in Joburg, 11 to 15 September. Significant interest, but there was about 300 people that's really data scientists or AI machine learning type of people that obviously want to engage and learn. So there was a whole week going into the fundamentals of deep learning, AI, reinforcement learning, talking about all these kind of things. And Benji also has given a talk there, so you will hear more of him as well. You will actually see him on the list. There's Benji. But what was really cool, there was representatives from across, or attendees from across Africa. There was 23 African countries that was represented. And so it was actually one of the largest machine learning teaching events globally. It was actually amazing. It was not only from Africa, it was also internationally. Great event. And I also want to mention another event that just recently happened. It was actually now in October. And the one guy is Bayu. He is an end-to-end C-level executive. He might be presenting tomorrow by video, but he was scheduled to actually do a keynote tomorrow morning. But anyway, he's instrumental in Data Science Nigeria, where they just had the first big data economy, driving economy through data science. You can see some of the guys there. And what they also had with that parallel was the second Data Science Nigeria bootcamp. And I'm not sure how many people there was, but I remember the first one where the BR also participated. We had a data science experts, a panel of experts that actually by Google Hangouts was actually talking to, answering questions of the 150 data scientists at that first bootcamp. It was in January, February this year. And this is now their second one in October, also in Lagos. So they are really on the move and trying to build capacity, which is exactly what we need. So really awesome. So hopefully we'll hear more from Bayu. I think that's Bayu there right in the middle. And then also, right after the Deep Learning Indaba, we had the MIA, the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa. We had an event also here in Cape, I think in Johannesburg, at the DIZ, the Digital Innovation Zone, which also linked to BITS. And this is just some of the pictures. We had an event on a Friday, and then on the Saturday, we had hackathon. And it was, I will share a little bit of that hackathon because this is some of the active things that's happening. Now, we've got IBM representative here as well, so he's going to talk about IBM Watson, so you might recognize some of the IBM people that was here, so there's a bunch of people, but so very successful hackathon, and it's the specific challenge was interesting, maybe very typical for Africa, topical, and it was a deep learning, we were looking at a vision problem, and specifically we're looking at potholes, and just reading here, the Automobile Association said that if there was proper maintenance of our roads, then there could have been an immediate decrease in about 5% of road deaths. South Africa has more than 700,000 accidents occurring annually. And they talk about these kinds of things, but what was interesting when you look at these pictures, it was the specific challenge was identifying these kind of potholes. You train the system on training data, but then you want to make sure you can predict it and it can generalize well. And there was about 5,000 training images, and we basically allowed them during the day to develop their models, and then at the end of the day, we've given them a test set that they haven't seen before. And then the team that actually obviously get the best accuracy on the test set is the winning team. So there was 2 prizes, it was actually 4 prizes. The first 3 was for accuracy, and the last one was best presentation, It was quite fun. It's a fun day. But so here the people were coding and doing some stuff. This is just some of the various teams. We had in certain case one guy. He was on his own, competing with guys that. These guys, for instance, they are actually a company called AI Authenticate here in Joburg. They specialize in vision and face recognition, and they've got these biometric systems and stuff. And there were some really interesting people. So, but anyway, so the end result, okay, there's another more coding photos. Well, maybe I just want to mention there's two guys that's also part of the BM community. Alex is with me there on the right hand side. So you've got Alex Conway and Chris Curran. Chris is doing his PhD in neuroscience, but he's building virtual assistants. He's got some great presentations. And Alex Conway is in deep learning and vision. He's got also a company, Number Boost and stuff. But anyway, so they were fantastic during the event, helped set up things and the challenges and so forth. But then the winning, so the prizes was, the first one was actually that single guy that I showed you was the winner. He was a master student in applied mathematics. Young Barret, and he beat the other guys with all these big teams and smart machines and everything. So, but anyway, so that's Young. And then the Authenticate team came second, and then there's another team here. And then the best presentation was really cool as well. So anyway, there is the presentations and the stuff is all on the MIA website. Then I want to quickly talk about other present events that's happening. So next week, Alia mentioned the Accelerate Cape Town event where there's some talks around AI. But what's interesting, there's now roundtable discussions around Africa. And this particular one is arranged by the World Wide Web Foundation and CARE. CARE is the Center for Artificial Intelligence Research. And so I'll be there as well. It's next week, the week after that. And it's about artificial intelligence in South Africa and talking about current policies and practices to ensure AI is for all. So very much something that's close to my heart, and that I believe we need to democratize AI. We need to use the smart technologies to make a difference. So looking forward to this kind of roundtable discussion. Then I've been invited also to participate in this global symposium, Artificial Intelligence and Inclusion. That's in Rio de Janeiro, 8 to 10 November. And Harvard University is involved in this stuff. They've actually paid my ticket to be there and stuff. So I'm looking forward to this. But so there's interesting, all these kind of discussions about AI, inclusion. We've got once here in South Africa, there's global discussions. You heard Alia talking about these type of things. So clearly there's a lot of stuff happening. Okay, now some other examples. I think one of the big examples for Africa is really the square kilometre array. And also at previous MIA events, we had some of the SKA people presenting and talking about their deep learning and AI and all the challenges and stuff like this. So what I want to do is there's just a few slides on this to show a little bit of what they're doing. So there's some papers also talking about taming the data deluge to unravel the mysteries of the universe. It's actually someone from New Zealand, Melanie Johnson-Collett, presenting there, but talking about this. And here you can see some pictures of SKA in Africa. So obviously it's an ongoing project. There's some early things happening with Meerkat being put up there. There's one in Ghana as well, Kutunsi, the one on the left. And then on the right you see Meerkat, which is the first radio telescope. It's a kind of a precursor to SKA, the Square Kilometre Array. And it's more on the mid frequency. So looking at different frequencies, radio frequencies. So in Australia they've got the low frequencies, and here in Africa is more mid frequencies and high frequencies that we're looking at. And you can see this stuff happening in Africa. So you can see it's not just South Africa. Obviously there's a lot of stuff happening here in the Karoo, but it's also across Africa and obviously in Western Australia as well. So here you can see the various phases in Ghana, Zambia, Botswana, Kenya, Madagascar, Mauritius, even Mozambique. But why the SKA? And it's really, so it's interesting challenges here. So when I talk about Einstein's theory of relativity to the limits, how the very first stars and galaxies formed just before, after the Big Bang. Obviously dark energy. There was a Nobel Prize in 2011 for dark energy. Then powerful magnetic fields which permeate the cosmos and where we are alone in the universe. So this is some of the reasons why people are putting so much money into this. They want to know more about these kind of things. And just what it would look like. So hundreds and eventually thousands of mid to high frequency 15-meter dishes will be located in South Africa and Africa. And then in Western Australia, we're talking about a million low-frequency antennas that will be put up there. So you get kind of an idea of scale. So the bigger ones here in Africa, the smaller ones, but lots of them in Western Australia. Obviously, it's going to generate tons of data. And you can see all the countries involved in this: Australia, Canada, China, India, Italy, New Zealand, South Africa, Sweden, Netherlands, and United Kingdom. And there's some of the timelines. I'm going to just skip that. But what I wanted to quickly, the reason I'm mentioning this as well, because obviously it's a big data problem, and AI machine learning comes into play here as well. And what they were saying is that the data here, they say SKA is as much a supercomputing system as it is a telescope. It will require supercomputers faster than any in existence in 2016, and network technology that will generate data traffic at a comparable level to the entire current internet. So massive amounts of data. And the two final slides here is just talking about big data areas. So machine learning, high-speed streaming, visualization, mass storage, power-efficient computing, sensors, algorithms, analytics, all comes into play. And when you look at machine learning or AI projects, it's things like RFI flagging, so you look at radio frequency interference, systems monitoring, pulsar search, wind predictions, all these kind of things. And there's actually a paper here, it's actually a master's student at Stellenbosch University just building some machine learning based approaches to radio frequency interference classification in radio astronomy. So just to make you aware of some of the things happening in Africa, world-class stuff that's that's quite interesting. And then the final example, before I get to the future part of it, so here's an example. It's just a paper on crop diseases, where you actually model it and monitor it. In this particular instance, it was actually in Uganda. This was just an incidence map of the cassava brown streak disease, and this is examples of healthy leaves and those affected by the cassava mosaic disease on the right-hand side. And this is just an example of where AI machine learning was being utilized to actually identify and start monitoring that and so forth. Okay, so that was that. So just very quickly in the future, okay, so let's just talk about this now. Alani and Chidibuli, you talked about the policies and stuff, very much super intelligence, all of those kind of things. Very important and relevant. To tie into that, if you think about the AI revolution or the smart technology era we live in here, we do have an opportunity to actually pull the bottom billion out of poverty and transform dysfunctional institutions, governments, organizations, all sorts of stuff. Or we can actually entrench injustice, increase inequality. So it's kind of, it's an interesting time. So the next number of years, the way we manage this is going to be absolutely critical. We can't just sit back and let it just go. We need to be proactive and do something about this. So there's a few slides that's just talking about Africa being warned of the AI impact on economies. It was July 2017. And some of the things that they were saying there is just ties in with what I was saying earlier on as well, in terms of great access to affordable IT infrastructure for the youth. We need much more affordable access to the internet and technology, especially the youth, but pretty much everyone. Clearly, if you think about professions that will be heavily affected, will accountancy, law, medicine, and Dr. Donald Ruka was just recently saying that it's not too late for Africa to adapt to the future. We've seen examples that I've showed earlier on about leapfrogging and all of that. So certainly we can do something about this. This is now more from a business perspective, so I put some slides together based on some of the statistics. You talked about PwC statistics, so this is the kind of stuff that various practical say 40 million in 2025. These guys say 100, whatever. But the opportunity, so I've just tried to figure out if you work with that kind of market size opportunity from an AI perspective, then if you assume only 2.5% of the total available market for Africa, so trying to be conservative, then that's still about $1 to $5 billion by 2025. And if you say only 50% of the serviceable obtainable market, say for you, for your company or whatever, that's still in the region of 0.5 to 2.5 billion. So there's incredible opportunity to unlock value, put it from a business perspective. And what was interesting, this is kind of status C in terms of this research. Africa is a little orange line on top there, so it's a small piece of this that's pretty much equate to my calculations in the previous slide. But we can do a lot more. We can be competitive on the international market scene as well. So if we do stuff here, we leapfrog, those kind of solutions can make a difference. This is an interesting one. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's actually breaking it down by sector. We're looking at agriculture, finance, healthcare, retail, energy, and looking at the market opportunity. And it's actually quite big. So it's big numbers, 23 billion, 34 to 43 billion in general, where AI can make an impact in those kind of industries as well. And the use cases are very interesting, just to go through that. But I'll share the slides, so if you want to look at that. And then there's also competitive landscape reports being produced in Africa versus international players. So I've got more things on that. Okay, so what I would like to just end off with here is just, I think it's important to get a little environmental on intellectual property and those type of things, thought leaders. You get the Accenture, this is a report by Accenture, we've got PwC coming up with things, also the Deloitte's and McKinsey's and so forth. So I just want to share a little bit of that because I think there's some really cool stuff in there. But this is a report just focusing on one of the countries in Africa, South Africa, and is South Africa ready for AI? And they were just laying out the technologies and obviously breaking it down to sense, comprehend, act, and what are the various technologies and what is the illustrative solutions, things like virtual assistants, identity analytics, cognitive robotics, speech analytics, recommendation systems, data visualization as examples. And what was good here is some of the questions here. Why do we need AI? And these are some of the things that they were saying. So most consumers and enterprise clients will select products and services based on the company's AI instead of the company's traditional brand. So that's how things changing. You think you sell your brand, but it's actually now products being selected based on your AI that's maybe influencing as well. I've talked about the interfaces as well. That will be changing all the way. So you will not have screens, it will not be integrated into daily tasks. Most interfaces. So currently we work with interfaces and stuff, but that's going to change. Adaptive workforce, so the gig economy, we talked about the talent index and so forth, the gig economy. I think we will see people having multiple jobs, potentially doing various things, applying their skills. Ecosystems, power plays, see already what's happening with the tech stacks, and I mean, you get TensorFlow, you get CTK, all these kind of things on the deep learning stuff, but it is really the API economy, and you need to know how to operate with that. And really what's happening here, AI is becoming the new UI, in fact, so very, very interesting. And obviously, I think in South Africa, most executives agree that to boost their own organization competitiveness, they need to invest in AI technologies. So that's the slide there. So the question is, what is holding South Africa back? And this kind of summarized here. So what are the things that we need to do? So obviously, it's got the potential to overcome the physical limitation of capital and labor, and open up new sources of value and growth. The one problem we've got in South Africa is productivity. So this thing can help to address that deficit if you apply and use the technologies appropriately. And what they had on the next slide here was interesting. Talk about three main channels through which value is generated. Now, we talked about, when I started off, we talked about the fourth industrial revolution. I talked about third one, we talked about automation, and then we said smart automation. Intelligent automation, and this is exactly what they speak to here. Intelligent automation which is different from all previous forms of automation, where AI can learn and improve over time rather than degrade. The other part of this is the way they augment humans. And I think that's basically what's going to happen in the future is we need to change our roles very quickly as well. So even a medical doctor's role is going to change in the sense that maybe trusting the medical diagnosis, but focusing more on empathy and speaking to the individuals, the patients, and interpreting results. So that there could be changes in roles. We need to adapt to that. In this case, you can even have machines that can help you learn as well, learning assistants and that type of thing as well. And the third point was just here about innovation. Diffusion is just talking about you innovate via, so basically they say innovation begets further innovation. For example, stimulating new ideas and business models among adjacent businesses and industries and spillover effect. And I've talked about the strategic advantages you can get from big data analytics and AI. So clearly that's another reason, that's another area as well. And on the right hand side you see that 4.5% growth is the estimation based on economic growth forecast with AI. And I think I talk about real gross value add by 2035. The bottom line is with AI you can increase your national growth, real gross value. Okay, then the final part here was just forging a path to an AI future. What must South Africa now do? And in every country we need to do this kind of stuff. So we need to create a vibrant ecosystem. So university startups, large companies, policymakers, we need all these. We need to turn the AI investment into AI-driven growth, and we need to obviously practice responsible AI that earlier you were talking about. So just quickly in terms of turning AI investment to AI-driven growth, and this is very, I think, important for any company to look at. So on the y-axis we've got kind of an AI coefficient, artificial intelligence coefficient, that's looking at invention from 0 to 100. On the x-axis we've got collaboration. So if you've got just observers, 56% of the companies are basically into this bracket. They're just observers. Then you can move into just innovation. So there's about 14 companies that are trying to invent but not collaborate. Then you get guys that are not really inventing but they are collaborating. And then you've got 70% of companies that's collaborative inventors. And if you want to move quickly and fast, collaboration is very important. So you can use AI, you can build in-house capacity, you also partner to actually accelerate your efforts. So that's important as well. So when you think about AI-driven growth, it's important to see how quickly can I move forward, who can help me move forward quicker. Okay, then the last is next step for policymakers and business leaders. And you talked about design, those type of things with Microsoft and so forth. But basically, we need to take the lead. Executive needs to take the lead, the business leaders. And then they need in their company to create an open AI culture. You need to create a holistic AI approach. You've got to leverage your ecosystems. That's all about the partnerships and seeing what's available there, commercially, open source, whatever. And then you can even take the crowd into the cloud, where you can, you've got your data there, you source, maybe enrich your data with external data, and you can bring that into play as well. So all of those are things that are important. And then execute and monitor is the second and third one. And this is interesting. We talked about HR, reinventing HR, and what they're talking about is not HR, but HARE. And HARE is an acronym for Human and AI Resources, so that's close to when you talk about robot rights, robotics, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so one needs to look at this because it's about collaboration and working together. So it's maybe not from a superintelligence perspective, this is more from a perspective of you've got systems so the AI function will need to incorporate AI technology into all aspects of its work, from hiring to retirement. So basically looking at the whole thing. So more kind of AI-based approach to HR. That's effectively what it's about. And then I've got a big mission around just converging data to intelligence, where in terms of, you always need to think about the business outcomes. How do you actually build those kind of solutions? Not just think about isolated things. So this whole paragraph speaks to that. And you've got to learn with the machines. You need to take a step beyond automation, where you bring in, talk about intelligent automation as well. And then the final part is, I mentioned this earlier on, but measure your return on algorithms. Measure your return on AI. Nobody's really doing that, because it's almost like, let's try it out here and so forth. So obviously it's not as mature, those kind of end-to-end solutions, but that's clearly an area that one needs to look at and needs to understand and do properly. Okay, so I think I'm gonna, there's some more stuff here, but I think I want to just open up the discussion, because it's 12 o'clock now. Any questions that you've got on future, any thoughts? You've been stimulated by various things here, but anything that you've got on this regard? Any questions?
Questions?
Yes.
How do you bring these different people together, the startups and big companies? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because that's right. You're coming from the BS Tech as well. So you want to think about collaboration, and there's some startups that can help to disrupt. So my personal experience around this is, there are some incubators that I've participated in, Barclays Techstars, and got involved with a number of platform new businesses that's obviously been selected, but they try to disrupt and make a difference, come with real world-class solutions. And so I think via these kind of, so the BS can do the same type of thing potentially, where you just set up a kind of incubator around those types of things as well. So Barclays was behind that. You will see Stellenbosch University, for instance, got a launch lab. The incubator, I'm also involved there. I met some of the companies that were investors as well. And what was interesting there, they've got these challenges from Santam, from Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz just came with 10 innovation challenges. And what was amazing about them is they showed us pictures of last year where they were, everything is still, you see, warehouses of paper, and everything is just paper everywhere. And they've moved to a kind of paperless situation. And now on top of that, they're bringing in all these new innovation technologies that they talk about Microsoft HoloLens, and they talk about intelligent virtual assistants and stuff like that. So another example is, so they're trying to connect student startups with companies that way. So again, that's where a university with initiatives, that's actually part of Node, which is incubator. I'm not sure, I think Victoria, Vince, I'm not sure to what extent is that happening at universities, but I think I've mentioned here a vibrant ecosystem, and universities plays a big role, but companies can come to the fore as well, large companies to participate. And it was quite interesting. I spoke to the Mercedes-Benz guys, executive management here in South Africa, and they mentioned that they just picked it up by accident. Oh, see, it's a launch lab, let's use it. And so that's a practical example. But just to finish that off, what was interesting for me is because I've worked with companies across the globe, and I would expect, I think, know about Tesla, there are advances there, but Mercedes-Benz in Germany should be incredibly efficient, paperless and stuff, but it's not like that. It's exactly like South Africa, what it was last year. And it's always interesting that here in South Africa, they're kind of leading that innovation. And we've got the guys from Germany flying in 10th of November and to look at all these innovative solutions that can potentially rolled out. So that's a very interesting use case of where solutions being developed here in South Africa or Africa that can be rolled out internationally. And just because we're not, it's so difficult, I think, with the regulation and things to change certain things, the way they work in certain areas. Tesla's a new company, so they can just use new things straight away. But it just shows what can be done. You have to see the photos to see the difference. Going from tablet to tablets, everything electronic, all the work instructions, workflows, everything is just seamless. And the things that they're talking about here, I've got an intelligent virtual assistant called Bennett here, and we're pitching this to them as well. This thing looks at your productivity and safety. If I shake the phone, it will come up with a safety dialogue and talk about, well, you're going to talk about intelligent virtual assistant. This one actually uses IBM Watson APIs as well, so interestingly enough. Long answer, but that's the thing. Any other questions? Yes.
The challenge not exemplified by what you see happening between, say, Uber and the meter taxi industry. So I think it's all very simple to say that you just put these people together, but the clash comes because you're dealing with incumbents. You're dealing with people who already work in a certain way, and they see these new systems as a threat
Yes.
to them. And so they're going to push back, they're going to sabotage it. And it's not to say, like you were saying, that in fact in the future you might look back and go, oh shit, that was a mistake, we should have done that. So yeah, I think it's all fine to be sort of gung-ho, but the real challenge for me is in that you're disrupting a bunch of people who work in a certain way. It's not easy to tell them,
That's
sorry,
true.
you just reskill yourself, you'll be fine, don't worry.
We need to manage that. I absolutely agree. So we need to take responsibility. So this is a big thing. It's such a major impact. And I think as humans, we're so used to, there's my job. Even universities, when you look at studies, they prepare you for a job. This is my job. And that's not going to be like that as well. So one needs to be incredibly agile. We talked about 21st century skills and stuff. And if you think about, you need to think about everything about your business. You need to think about how it will, what skills do I need to adjust very quickly. So it's a big responsibility on companies. You can't just think it's static and it's this and that. So